Hey y'all, good morning. This is your man Shabir Aleem, and welcome back to Daddy's Right Here. Excuse me. Wow. So it's been quite a week, huh? Final Four is down to its final two. Villanova and Michigan. Michigan State. Yes. Going to be a great game. So right into it, as you know I do. Last week we were covering the list of 10 things, right, that our children need from us as their parents, right? And number one on that list was love, obviously. Number two on that list was faith. Number three, confidence. Number four, which is where we actually stopped. We completed it, but we stopped there, was patience. So we're going to move right on into number 5 on that list. And number 5 on that list of the 10 things our children need from us as their parents is affection. Now, let me read from the article. Touch is one of the most important and grounding aspects of a relationship. Touch cues our hormones for bonding, love, and a sense of security, and has shown to have an immediate impact on reducing stress levels. Our children are going to go through the same hell as any other human being. When we see them struggling, it is not helpful for us to heap our own anxieties about their struggle onto them. We need to offer affection and support, letting them know that this too shall pass. A little affection is that spoonful of sugar that helps the pain go down. Talk to your children. Love and snuggle them. Do not shout at them. You know, I didn't grow up in an affectionate environment. Let me just put it out just like that. It has nothing to do with my mother's parenting, my father's parenting, or anyone else's paternal or maternal skills. But I didn't grow up in an environment where there were hugs all the time, where there was affection in the capacity that this article speaks to. I didn't grow up in that, right? So there weren't any hugs, right, going on like that. If they were few and far in between. But there was a lot of shouting. There was a lot of cussing, things of that nature. You know, in many of the environments that I grew up in, whether it was directed at me or whether it was directed at one another. You know, oftentimes children are caught up in the middle of everything. You know, the battles of parents are often fought on the backs of children, right? And then what happens is, and the article talks about that, is when we see them struggling, it is not helpful for us to heap our own anxieties, right, about their struggle onto them, right? And sometimes we do that. You know, as parents, we want to, oh, no, you can't do that. No. And, you know, and now the child is like, okay, so what do I need to do here, right? Because you all upset, and I'm just talking to you just because I haven't lived through whatever this struggle is. You've been through this struggle. You've experienced this struggle, right? So, and I brought that up in the last show, and I'm going to bring it up often. Oftentimes, we approach situations involving our children from a perspective of we have already gone through it. And sometimes we haven't brought resolve to how we went through it. And we put that upon others. But most importantly to understand is that I haven't had that experience. I can't internalize things the way you do. right? A child doesn't have the capacity, a 10-year-old child, a 15-year-old child, a 5-year-old doesn't have the capacity, right, to understand the perspective of a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 50-year-old. They don't have that capacity. And what happens is you allow your experience to be that of the child, or you attempt to keep the child from going through that experience when you forget how you even found yourself in that situation to be having that experience. Right? You have to understand. And you know, I went and looked up the word affection, because like a lot of times people don't even understand what the word affection means. It's like, it's a matter of developing a bond. It's bonding, right? It's a bonding that happens, right, when you start having an affection, right, with another person, right? And you know, affection is a lot of things that people really don't see as being affectionate. So I was doing a fatherhood class, and we were talking about touch, right? Because this is one of those little small things that happen between us, and we don't even realize we're doing it. So I was talking to the guys, we were talking about touch and how touch is significant to a child. Like, so you should always be connecting with them, you know, in dialogue and physical touch as well. And so I said for them to look at what happens when they come upon one another. You know, how it is that they engage one another, be it, you know, them as peers in this group, with their family members, with friends, associates, and others, how they interact. And I was saying that you have to look at the handshake. You know, when brothers shake hands, you know, they usually grasp the hand, and maybe one hand goes on the shoulder, or they pull each other in, right? That's affection. That's affection. So, you know, after we got done talking about that, one of the other classmates came into the class, so I saw him coming, so I said, now watch this. Watch what he does when he comes in, right? So when their classmate came in, he came in and he walked by, and he literally touched each person in some capacity before he got to his seat. So there were about 5 people sitting on the row that was nearer to the door. He came in, he put his hand on one shoulder, he patted the other dude on the back. The main man turned around and shook his hand, and you know, but each one, and the class just busted out laughing, right? Because they didn't see, right, how significant touch is even to them. Even to them. They did not realize how significant touch is in their daily interactions with others. And it's that touch that causes us to bond with one another in some capacity. Right? Just think about it for a minute. You greet everyone else with a handshake or with a hug of some capacity, right? When you're engaging them. And how do you engage those who you do not care for? Think about it for a minute. Do you want to touch them? And when you do, if you're forced to be in a situation where you have to, how do you touch them? Right? It's like one of them, yeah, okay, how you doing? It's not, the bond is not there. It's not like a, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Nice to meet you, right? So when you look at children and the significance of touch, right? It's real important to be tender with a child. Really, it really is. To hold them close to you, to hold their hands. Like, I like holding hands. I'm the kind of guy who likes holding hands. I like walking, you know, down lane 4 in Walmart holding hands, right? Walking on the beach holding hands, walking through the parking lot to the store holding hands, right? I'm a very affectionate person. Very affectionate. Even though I didn't grow up with it. It's something I always yearn to be. It's something that I enjoy. right? That's one of my needs in a relationship, right? That you have to be affectionate. And sometimes it just didn't work out that way, right? But most importantly, it's right, I've identified that as being my own need. So for me to be in a relationship with someone, right, affection is number one on that list. Well, number one is having a relationship with God first and foremost. But then the affection comes in, under that. But when we talk about what our children need from us, right, you should always be, speaking to them. Well, you can be firm, directive in your approach, when you're talking to a child, but screaming and yelling at a child. Do you ever see a child cower when the parent starts yelling at them? See, again, it goes back to as an adult. I'm just going to assume we're talking about adults because, anyway, as parents, as caregivers, you have to understand that because you're frustrated because something happened, which is a natural thing for a human being to do, is make a mistake. But you have to look at your own level of frustration. Why are you frustrated? Because it's stupid. He knows better than that. Well, if he knew better than that, why did he do it? Why did he do it? Did you ask him? That's part of that affection as well. That's part of that communication. That's part of that love. That's part of that patience. That's part of that confidence in allowing that child to make that mistake and to guide them, not impose your own anxiety upon them about what just happened. And that's typically what is going on in the moment, right? You're imposing your own stuff upon that child. And listen, folks, listen, don't get this twisted, right? I didn't have all this information, right? When my children were growing up, I didn't have all this information, right? I did my best, right? I continue to do my best. But today, right now, in this moment, I'm giving you this information, right? Try it. See the difference in the relationship. Because you can do it. Moving forward, you can do it. Right? This is important. Look at the tone that you use to your child when they make mistakes. How do you think they're going to react to themselves when they make mistakes? You beat them up, then they go inside and beat themselves up. What kind of conditioning is that? Look at our society today and look at the condition of many of our children. Do you understand what a child goes through today, going back and forth to school, going back and forth to daycare? Do you understand? No, you may understand from your own perspective when you were going to those places. But things have changed in our societies today. The mindset of people has changed greatly today. Children have different information today. So it's real important to understand, to go back to on the article, a little affection is that spoonful of sugar that helps the pain go down. Talk to your children. Love and snuggle them. Do not shout at them. Do not. And one of the things that I learned about myself, being in an environment where there was always yelling, screaming, and shouting, is that I developed that same behavior. I developed that same behavior. It was like, you ever watched the, what's that cartoon called? The Loud Family? Everybody in the house is loud. They just talk at each other all the time. Or are you ever around people that's all they do? Is yell, scream, and shout. But then they'll say, well, I don't mean nothing by it. That's just how we talk. But you have to understand the impact that has on a child who you are responsible for nurturing, for grooming, for bringing them up in a condition, right, where they can take life by the horns and not be stressed and spazzed out by every little thing that happens. So affection is number 5 on that list, and it's real important, once again, that you look at all of these things on this list, because these are all the things that our children need from us. My mouth is a little dry this morning, y'all forgive me. Number 6 on that list is counsel, right? Our role as parents is to provide feedback to our children, which is conducive to the building of their character. When we criticize, yell, berate, or become passive-aggressive, they cannot grow. They will shrink or become enraged and develop negative feelings about themselves. Just got finished talking about that. Their capabilities and about us. Let me read that sentence one more time in case you missed it. They will shrink or become enraged and develop negative feelings about themselves, their capabilities, and about us. When we rob our children of their pain and we do not allow them the possibility of failure, then we also rob them of their pursuit of happiness. Our children need our counsel to understand that the most important part of life is the worthwhile struggle of discovering a sense of meaning and purpose. You know, one of the buzz phrases that came up, I think over the last, probably, I want to say the last 2 to 3 years, regarding living life on purpose. And you hear people say that oftentimes in regards to religion, right? Speaking in reference to God's purpose for you. But first and foremost, you got to understand this. When raising children, right? When raising children, children must, let me use this analogy. When you're growing a garden, right, you know the most important thing about that garden is the soil. Okay? Now, I want you to remember where that seed, that egg landed, right, when it took its position to begin the growth of the fetus, right? So the sperm enters the egg, right? Now, let me go back for a minute. So the egg emits some kind of fluid from it, right? That's attracting the sperm cell. See, the sperm cell doesn't have eyes. There's no eyes on the sperm cell, right? So what they're drawn to is a fluid that is coming from the egg. Once that sperm cell, the successful one, gets in, now the egg, right, stops emitting that fluid. Everything else coming that way gets blocked, dies, goes away. You ain't got a shot, right? So now, so you got the sperm, the two 23 chromosomes of each parent, right? Come together, bloop, it's one. What happens then? That egg then drops and it falls into its place within the womb, right? Creating the womb. That's where it falls, right into that place, right? So now that's the soil. So I want you to look at your condition before you were pregnant and when you got pregnant. That is the soil that is now coming into the child. Not forgetting about the 23 chromosomes that the father contributed, right? Because that's also part of the soil, right? That's within the seed, right? So it drops down, roots go down, it connects, it's locked in. Now all the feeding and everything that goes into the mother, right, goes into the child. That's the soil. Now you have to have a proper diet, right, in order for the child to get the natural, the nutrients that it needs. There's natural things that happen within the mother, right? When the mother eats, drinks certain things, if she smokes, that's in effect. Drinking alcohol is in effect. Drug abuse is in effect. Stress is in effect, right? All those things are part of that soil. So now what you have is, you have a child that's growing in this soil. And as long as the child is getting all those things that it needs, beginning with the mother, the child, through God's blessing, grace and mercy, comes out a healthy child. Regardless of whatever disabilities the child may have, that's still healthy, right? We all have our disabilities, and we need to get in touch with that. We all have some kind of a disability. So when you look at, now this child is out, how do you nurture those things within the child that were part of that soil, right? Because they're going to have characteristics, traits, personalities, just like you and the father, coupled with their own, right? So I mean, they got your stuff, dad's stuff, and their own stuff, which is why it's important that you go back to the affection. But you got to go back to the affection with that touch, because if you weren't touched, right, and I'm saying that in the positive sense, if you weren't touched by your parents and you took on these traits of two parents or even one parent who was not affectionate, right, that's going to exist within that child in some capacity. Where it says here, when we criticize, let's look at that first. When we criticize, why would you criticize your child? You got to look at that. I don't know. Yes, I did it again. Yes, you did tell me again. Yes, you have told me probably 4 or 5 times. I don't know why I keep doing that. I don't know why I keep going back trying it this way. I really don't. So do you continue to be critical of that area, or do you move into helping that child to kind of see why they end up doing what it is that they do? And not through criticizing them. Guidance, affection, listening, patience, right? When we berate or become passive aggressive, think about it for a minute. This is a child. And I think, you know what? It's the most asinine thing that I've ever seen in my life when I see people yelling and screaming at children. They don't understand. I did it as a parent. Why am I yelling? Why am I screaming? Because you don't know something? Do you yell and scream at your boss? Do you yell and scream at your mother? Your father? Do you yell and scream at grandma? Why are you yelling and screaming at this child? It has nothing to do with the child. It has everything to do with you and your own set of issues that you don't want to face. But now that you're a parent, it's apparent that there's something wrong here. It says they cannot grow. After you do all of that, they cannot grow. So now you have a child who's stuck. They're stuck. And because you don't have the ability to be nurturing, because you don't have the ability to guide them, right? And some of the other things that I can name on that list, because you don't have that ability, you get your child stuck. Now your child is stuck. They're emotionally stuck. They're psychologically stuck. They're physically stuck. What do you do when you're stuck? With the knowledge that you have, with the resources that you have, what do you do when you're stuck? What do you think a child is going to do when they get stuck? Excuse me. What do you think they're going to do when they get stuck? They withdraw. They spend more time alone. They spend more time in their room. They spend more time with friends who understand them. And a lot of times those friends are passing them something to take the pain away. Take the pain away. Right? Yo, smoke this. Pop that. Snort this. Right? That's what's happening. That's what's happening, and that's what has happened in our society today. Right? Because they're not growing. They're stuck. So when we look at adults today and we see all these juvenilistic behaviors, right? That's why. They haven't got off the sticky pad. Right? You ever see a mouse on a sticky pad on one of the glue traps? They kind of squirm and they keep moving. And if you leave them there long enough, they eventually get off of it because the hair becomes matted. They have oils in their skin and all that. I know it's too early. But I'm just saying, that's why we have so many men and women who are very immature. But you can't tell them that they're immature because they don't see anything wrong with it because they've been stuck so long in that condition that they believe that that's the condition that they should be in. And they're obviously not surrounding themselves with people, who are telling them the truth. And in many cases, when people are telling you the truth and you want to be in denial, you want to remain in that condition, right? You get away from those people. So these people, bottom line, are stuck, right? And that's what you do. When you berate, criticize, and are passive-aggressive, right, toward your children, toward your child, right? You keep them from growing. And then you sit back and you want them to do things. You want them to come into that age. Oh, you're a teenager now, you should be doing such and such. Well, I don't know how to do that. You always told me how to do it. They don't come out and tell you that, but they do tell you they don't know how. And then you berate them again. You criticize them again. Tell them how stupid. Well, you need to be doing this because other kids your age. But look at how you're talking to the child. Look at how you're talking to the child. This is your creation. This is your Frankenstein monster that you can't stand. Oh, I love him. That's my child, but I don't like him. I don't like her. You don't like yourself because this is yours. This is your seed. This is what you've grown. Don't blame the child. Don't blame the child. See, what happens is, as adults, right? As adults, we want to blame our child for their direction. Because we've never learned to take responsibility for our own stuff, for our own conduct, our own bad behavior. So now, you don't want to look at your own bad behavior that put your child in this circumstance, but you want to keep looking at the child and telling the child how they're going to go in this particular direction if they keep doing this and they keep doing that. Well, what did you miss? What did you miss? And that's not to say that the child is not going to make a bad decision. They are going to make bad decisions, but you have to allow them to make bad decisions. You have to allow them to go through the pain, like you did. Like you did. Period. And that's where the conflict comes in with parents because, the mother will say, oh, be careful. And the father say, yo, you need to man up. At 5, I'm a man up. Imagine that. But anywho, so that's the different language, right? If a child was climbing up the ladder at the playground, the mother would say, be careful, take your time, one step at a time. Dad would say, yo, go higher, go up to the top. We have a different language. Obviously, we have a different language. But most importantly, right, that language that we're imposing upon the child is confusing. We have to find balance in that. One of the other things that it says here is they will shrink or become enraged and develop negative feelings about themselves. Again, I'm withdrawn. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to try anything. Everything that I've tried to do and didn't do as good as you thought I should be doing, I got criticized about it. I came in 3rd place in the race. I got beat up. I got beat down. I got beat up. I got beat down. Right? Did you do your best? Yes, I did. Is there anything that you think you can do more? Yes, I probably can maybe, do more training, commit more to training, because I really didn't train. I just thought that I had it. Okay. Anything I can help you with? Yeah. You can take out the trash and wash the dishes on Wednesday and Thursday for me. That'll give me more time. Well, I'm only kidding, but you understand what I'm saying? See, this is how you have to begin to look at what counseling is. That's what counseling is. And that's what real counseling is. Counseling is not me telling you what your problem is. Counseling is me pointing out the history that you have, looking at the track record that you have, looking at patterns of behavior that you have, looking at all of those things. Right? Looking at all of those things, because that's part of your history. And once you put it all out in front of you, then you say, hey, yeah, well, I see that. Hold on a second, folks. Now, I know it's plugged in here. I don't want to lose power here. Hold that thought. That's the beauty of doing things live. Everything happens in the moment, and there's nothing that you can do. It's on. Everything is together. All right. Okay. So, that's what counseling is. So, and it talks about here, when we rob our children of their pain, and we do not allow them the possibility of failure, then we also rob them of their pursuit of happiness. I got to go through it. I got to go through it. Important stuff here. That's number 6 on the list. So number 7 on this list is compassion. Each child is here in this life to be their own person. They are not here to be like us. All those, let me read the article first, then I'll elaborate. They're not here to be as good as or better than their siblings, peers, or the children of our friends. When we compare our children, we are telling them they are not as good as others. This undermines motivation and makes them feel a lack of their own personal insignificance. Insignificant. This undermines motivation and makes them feel a lack of their own personal significance. There is no comparison. You can only compare someone to themselves. And even then, we all have bad times in life we wish to move past. If we use comparison, it should only be used as an example of how far our children have come from where they were before. Use comparison instead of, use compassion instead of comparison. Listen, I want to always tell you this. Most of the times, I have only perused an article that I want to bring to the show, and I haven't read it in depth, focused on it, none of that kind of stuff. So I'm actually experiencing it in the moment with you, which is a good thing, because it forces me, right? Because again, this show is not just for you to be, listening to me about my thoughts and as a professional and personally, all those things, but it helps me. It reminds me of what I should do or what I have not done. It's really good. So I'm reading this and I'm like, looking at this the second sentence where it says, they are not here to be like us. Well, I had all girls. So, certainly didn't want them to be like me. But you ever see mini-me's? People are raising all these mini-me's. Right? We get dressed alike. We do, we kind of try to do things alike. You don't see the individuality of the child. We have a lot of problems with that, man. We have a lot of children, right, who are being raised as mini-me's. The other thing about it is that, when you criticize a child, let me say this. When a child is presenting good behavior, right, they're like me. When a child is doing bad behavior, you just like your mother. Right? You ever hear that? You know, all the good stuff that a child does, yeah, they just like me. Yep. See something negative, you just like your mother. Just like your father. Exactly what they would do. Right? They need to be themselves. And all too often, and it continues to happen even today, we take away individuality. So what happens is, right, and this is real important to understand, especially for people of color, right? So we get taken from a land and brought to an unfamiliar one, and everything, culture, religion, so many things taken away from us, right, as a people. Then, when a child is born, you take away the individuality. What am I? Who am I? And even when introduced to the culture, the original culture, our ancestors, right? Our lineage, we are in the condition of so much confusion with who we are. Right? Just learning to understand whose we are, right, can be a challenge. But when you take away individuality, I spend my life trying to figure out where I belong, what I want to be, who I want to be with. Is it starting to sound familiar? Are you beginning to get a picture here of what today's society looks like as a result of this? This is why relationships are so difficult, right? Boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. Because so many have had their individuality taken from them as well. All that exists within me, right? That individual aspect of me is not being nurtured. It's being shoved down. No, you're not. What do you mean you want to be a doctor? We're police officers in this family. What do you mean you want to play basketball? Athletes don't have any future beyond their sporting career. You start shooting them down. What do you mean you want to be an artist? We come from a family of doctors and nurses and lawyers. You want to draw? Who does that? Whatever exists within me, it's our responsibility as parents to nurture that. It helps with decision making. It helps me to feel better about myself. It builds my confidence, right? It's an attribute of perseverance. There's a whole lot of things that comes with that. And when you look at children today and you ask yourself, what is going on inside of that child? Because it can't be anything good, because look at the behavior. Look at the scowls on their faces at such a young age. Look at their condition. Look at their condition. It also talks about here where you can only compare someone to themselves. And even then, we all have bad times in life where we wish to move past, right? So when you compare yourself to other people, right? When you compare yourself and when you compare your child to other people, right? That's a problem. But if you as a parent haven't learned to not compare yourself to others, you can't avoid passing that on to your child. Because you say it around your child, you show it around your child. Oh, your aunt thinks she's better than everybody, because she lives in such and such, or because she drives such and such. Your uncle think he the shit because, he works for this company where he makes, a 6-figure salary. So when he come around us, right, he acting all uppity and so on and so forth. And then, you say those kind of things, and then you try to go out and you buy the same things that, the aunt has. So you go out and buy yourself a S-Class Mercedes, right? And next thing you know, the auntie done bought a Tesla. Now you all up in arms. Oh, she thinks she better. It just don't never stop. But you're living beyond your means, and you don't see what you're doing to your own condition. But when you tell a child, hey, listen, you need to be like your brother. Look at what your brother is doing. He goes to school every day. He's getting straight A's, right? He's looking at colleges and all these things. Look at you. You've been in 11th grade for 4 years in a row. Look at you. But you haven't helped that child. You haven't gotten that child a tutor. You haven't done anything to help the child. You have no clue as to what's going on with the child. And most times when the child doesn't want to go to school, it's because of the conditioning that you have imposed upon them that gave them the inability to be able to deal with certain situations. Because you've taken that away from them. You've taken that away from them. Now again, this show is not about telling you you're a bad parent. This show is about telling you that there are ways to improve the relationship between you and your child, but you have to begin to see where those areas are for you that are challenges. Listen, none of us are perfect parents. None of us, we're not perfect as human beings. We all can use some guidance. I wish I would have taken in some guidance years ago. When raising my daughters. When being absent from the life of one of my daughters. I wish then. But at that moment, that's where I was. I was living a life that was full of insanity, horrors, and a whole bunch of other negative things that just destroyed my spirit. And I thank God that my spirit has been healed, and I'm moving forward. But it's a lot of things that I wish I would have known. As a child, there's a lot of things I wish would have happened. But guess what? They didn't happen. So I'm not going to dwell in the past, and that's what it talks about here. And even then we all have bad times in life. We wish to move past. So you have to learn as an adult to move past those things. And you can't move past everything on your own. You can go to God. You can pray. But God is always sending you an answer. But if you're rejecting the answers, if you're rejecting what's being sent, you can't move past anything. And what you have to understand is, right, they came out with line dancing, but you can't line dance by yourself. So no matter which way you look at it in life, if you're going to dance, you're going to have to dance with somebody. You're going to have to dance with somebody. Right? So at least find somebody to dance with who is typically a person who is not going to co-sign your stuff. Right? So use compassion instead of comparison. Real important to understand. Use compassion. You need to understand what compassion is. Right? Number 8. We're getting close. All right. Number 8 is guidance. It is our role to teach our children right from wrong. Right from wrong. But it is not our right to decide who they are supposed to be. As parents, we need to stay away from controlling, manipulating, and pulling our children away from their natural interests. Remember, I talked about that. I talked about the natural, right? The innate things that happen. And you don't know what that is. We must allow them to explore their own decision-making process. And they are making decisions for them. So, if we show disgust or disappointment over their choices because they aren't the choices we would have made, then we are manipulating. For us to be great leaders, we need to live lives we love, to have a purpose beyond our children, so we don't need to live our lives and all of our unrealized dreams through our children. It is not their responsibility to make up for what we are missing in our lives. Oh, man. Listen. Come on, don't we do that, y'all? Let's be real here. Don't we do that? Don't we want our children to not do what we did? Don't we want that? No. We don't want that, right? Listen, it says, we must. It didn't say we should, it'd be a good idea. It said we must allow them to explore their own decision-making process in lieu of making decisions for them. If you make decisions for a child, as a child, you will be making decisions for that child as an adult. But that may be your need. That may be your need. You may need to keep your child dependent upon you because they haven't been given independence. When they're not able to make their own decisions, when they're not able to come into themselves, you establish a clone, you establish your own tool of need, and therefore everything about that child relies upon you. And you're good with that. No, you don't make no decisions without talking to me. You ever meet somebody who I got to talk to my mother first? Is the first thing that comes out of their mouth when you ask about a decision? I know women are probably saying, yeah, my man do that all the time. I got to go talk to my mother. Well, you check this out. You go talk to your mother, and you take your little hefty bags with you, and you can talk to your mother, boo-boo, all the time you want. Go and talk to your mother. And the same way that happens with the woman. But you talk to your mother. I'm your husband. Yeah, but you know, my mother, okay, you know what? I'll tell you what. Matter of fact, you go ahead to your mother's. I'll be over later. I'm going to bring all your stuff over there, and you can sit there, and you can talk to Mommy Dearest all you want to talk to, because I'm not going to be part of this. Come on. This is not, listen. It is our role to teach our children right from wrong. Not our right to decide who they are supposed to be. You can be anybody you want to be. Right? Anybody you want to be. If that's what you want to be, okay, I'm going to support it. Now, as the child goes along, you know, if you say, well, I think if you do this, that this is not going to benefit you in the future, right? And then later on, it benefits their future. You're going to be right there to reap the rewards of the future that they benefit from in doing this thing. If it doesn't pan out the way they had hoped for, the only thing you have to do is be there to support them. The only thing you have to do is be there with compassion. And say, okay, hey, listen, you tried, right? That's what you wanted to do. You gave it a shot. You did your best, right? Yes. Okay. So what's the next move? I really don't know yet. Okay. Well, if you need to talk about it, let me know. I'm sure you'll come to the right decision. Hey, listen, failure is finding out what doesn't work. It's not a negative thing, man. You got to try. You got to try. For us to be great leaders, we need to live lives we love, to have a purpose beyond our children. So we don't need to live our lives and all of our own unrealized dreams through our children. How many of us do that, man? Just think about that. How many of us do that? How many of you are still doing that today? Where's the individualism for your child? They have none. You've taken that away. Stop trying to live your life through your child. You can't get it back. It's gone. That's part of who you are. You ain't going to get that back. And your child not fulfilling that is only going to make things make things worse for you. It's going to make matters worse. It's not going to get any better. You need to fix that. You need to get some resolve for that. It is not their responsibility to make up for what we are missing in our own lives. Get a life. Right? Get out of your child's life. Stop manipulating them with your stuff. Let them be. Let them be who they are. Number 9 on that list. We're talking about 10 things our children need from us as their parents. Number 9, if you do not respect your children, they will in turn learn to not respect you. Children will do as you do, not as you say. They're not going to respect you simply because you were an adult. They can only respect an adult who respects them. If you ridicule them, they will ridicule and disobey you. If you want to be respected by them, respect yourself and show them what that looks like. Most importantly, respect them. It is through the respect given to them that they naturally learn to respect themselves and you. If you are emotionally immature as a parent, and you rage, ridicule, tantrum, and ignore your children, you teach them to respond to you and to life in that exact same way. Listen, I'm trying to tell you, this is the evidence in our society today. Parents yelling and screaming and cussing at their children. Parents yelling and screaming and cussing at one another. Parents yelling and screaming out in public with the road rage, or somebody in line ain't doing this and ain't doing that. The list goes on and on and on, and we see it every day, and you do it, and you know you do it, and then you want to tell the child not to do it. They do as we do, not as we say. You say one thing and you do something else. You do it all the time, Mom. You do it all the time, Dad. But you don't want to own it as the parent. I'm the parent. I'm the adult here. You listen to me. That is so small. That is so small of you. You don't have the right, we don't have the right as parents to take the position of, because it's a cop-out, right? I'm the adult here. I'm the parent. I say. That don't make you right. You're teaching your child right from wrong, which we talked about in one of the previous things on the list. You're teaching your child right from wrong. And here, it's not right to not listen to the child. It's not right, to just be disrespectful towards them, ridicule them, berate them, and then discipline them for acting the same way you act. You're disciplining yourself. That's what you're actually doing, and you don't see that. It's your own behavior imposed upon a child, right, that you're disciplining the child for. The child gets disciplined for your behavior because you don't have enough self-discipline to bring resolve to the unresolved within you. So you continue to beat upon a child that you have attempted to clone to be just like you, who is acting just like you. Now you want to beat you, but you're really beating me, the child. And now you are conditioning me to be just like you. Or maybe even worse. If you want to be respected by them, respect yourself. Respect yourself. And there's so many things. I see it, you see it, we see it every day, where parents are subjecting children to adult situations and then telling the child to act like a child. Wait a minute. When things happen, when I was coming up, when a lot of us were coming up, you stayed in a child's place. A child to be seen and not heard. You go on about your business. This adult sitting here. Go into your room. Go on with your friends. Go on somewhere, but you're not going to sit in here. I remember having to listen to Rudy Ray Moore from upstairs while the adults were sitting downstairs getting a drink on, right? Getting their flow on, playing cards, listening to Rudy Ray Moore. We weren't allowed to sit downstairs and listen to it. We had to go upstairs. So what if you overhear it? But you're not going to sit in an environment with adults. Period. You're just not. Right? You have parents who actually engage in sexual activity with their children in the same room. And see nothing wrong with it. Or their behaviors towards one another. It's one thing to be affectionate, but when you are acting sexual in nature in the presence of your child, that's not showing self-respect. It's not. The child shouldn't be in the room. If you engage in a telephone conversation where there's profanity, judgment, comparison, all that stuff going on, you shouldn't even have the child in the same room. What the child overhears is one thing. What the child is present for is another. You don't think that makes a difference? Try it. If we have an argument as parents, you close the door to your bedroom and that's where you argue. At least the child is learning there's some separation here. There's some boundaries here. Well, yeah, they did argue, but they didn't argue in front of me. They had their differences and they expressed their differences away from me. That's part of self-respect, right? How you dress, right? Part of self-respect. Right? And I'm going to say this because it came into my head yesterday. When I'm driving down the street and I see a 30, 40, 50-year-old man with his pants hanging off his ass, when he's looking like he's like a 15-year-old, that's a problem, man. That's a problem. Because I guarantee you got a child at home watching. Either it's your child or you're a caretaker for somebody else's child because their father's not there and you're with the mother. Different circumstances. But it is so appalling, it's so sickening to see grown-ass men, grown men, even with their children in hand, with the pants hanging off their ass. That's not a culture that you live in everyday life. That was a culture that was snatched from institutions. That was a culture that was snatched up through hip-hop culture. People who are performing on stage. Right? That group. You're a grown man. You ain't part of that group. But that's part of self-respect as well. You walk around with little man on a seat next to you and you hollering out at you doing cat calls. Right? With your child sitting right there. That's not self-respect. Stop exposing your children, our children, to the shenanigans of yours. That's why they don't have any respect. And the first time they do it, you want to beat up on them. Right? So when you look at respect, it begins with you. How you show your self-respect. Show me as a child what that should look like. Show me. Don't expect for me to respect you just because you're my mother, just because you're my father, just because you're an adult. If you're not showing me any respect, because I should be respected too. Again, it goes back to I'm a human being. I'm an individual. I may be a child, but I deserve respect. I deserve respect. You yell and scream at me, and when I yell and scream at you, you want to knock the crap out of me. But why are you yelling and screaming at me? And then when I raise up my hand to knock the crap out of you, then I'm wrong. You taught me that. You don't have a right to knock me down because I'm yelling and screaming because you're an adult, because you're my parent. What gives you that right? I brought you into this world. Again, so small in thinking because you don't want to take responsibility for your ill behavior. And that's what it is. That's what it is. Number 10 on this list, right? Because we're at the hour. Children need your love, time, and attention. There's no substitute for you. There's no substitute for you. Never let babysitters, iPads, video games, or other things become the parent or caretaker of your children. We are a working society and all have obligations, but children, our children, must come first.